Well, good evening. We're going to try to finish up kind of what we started last week. We were about 4 or 5 minutes in when the lights went out. Interesting thing with all the lights going out throughout most of the building. Our exit signs were still on and 3 lights above the podium. So the Lord was trying to tell me, just keep shining the light, I guess, or sharing the light, maybe sharing the light. Well, we talked about Paul was the author of Galatians. Probably written somewhere between 48 and 55 AD after Christ. I liked what Ryrie said, Charles Ryrie, who has a great study Bible, says, how can man, sinful by nature, come to God, holy by nature? And Paul said the only way we can come to God is through Jesus. Now, that's what it comes down to. Let's go ahead and jump in, I guess, where we talked about kind of the overview. And again, his normal greetings were a little different in this particular cyclical book. This was probably the first of the letters that he had written, and I think probably he got a little more inspired as he wrote and said a little more, but he just kind of jumps out there because he's under personal attack. He writes this letter, and it's a cyclical letter. In other words, it's to the church at Galatia, but it's also share it with other churches, kind of thing. And so that's what he's going to do. He's going to be sharing this particular letter. So he's under attack because of who he is. There were people challenging him as to whether or not he needed to be considering himself an apostle. And remember, apostles had to be taught, had to be trained under Jesus. And we're going to get to that. That realistically, he really was trained under Jesus. But he says, this is a letter from Paul, an apostle, and I was not appointed by any group of people or any human authority, but by Jesus Christ himself and by God the Father, who raised Jesus from the dead. He said, okay, you want to challenge my authority, you want to challenge who I am. And he said, I know you and you know me, and so you think that maybe I shouldn't have this authority, but and Ananias was challenging him. He met him on Straight Street, and he told him basically, God has given you this ministry, and it's going to be a ministry to the Gentiles. And everywhere Paul would go, he would start out his ministry trying to reach the Jews. He would go to the synagogue first, and typically after just a short period of time, they'd chase him out of church. They'd chase him off. So he started home churches. That's kind of what he ended up doing. And so most of the time he ended up ministering to the Gentiles, to the Greeks, to the beyond the Hebrews and beyond the Jewish nation. He'd talk to anybody and tell anybody about Jesus. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But nobody, he said, there's not anybody. He said even Ananias, who came and laid hands on him. He said Barnabas, who he was Joseph. We called him the son of encouragement, who went on his first mission trip. The council at Jerusalem, they didn't authorize him basically to be, but he said, you know what? Jesus is the one. Jesus is the one that has set me as an apostle out of time. He's appointed me. Not any group of people, not any one human authority, but Jesus himself and God the Father who raised him from the dead. He said, I'm